But for me, the most significant line here is "Here I go again." Um, Not the White Snake version, obviously.
Oh God. Flashbacks that
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting.
some yeah, some people I could resist. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles, in it. My name's John. His name is Andy. Television, the drug of the nation, breeding ignorance and feeding radiation. More on that later. But first, we've got a track to listen to, selected by Andy. What do you got for us today?
Well, we're finally getting around to doing some material from Warren Haynes that isn't at least some of that continued work that we saw from the Central Park show with Dave Matthews Band, where he performed lead guitar in a couple of those tracks that we've watched. And you may or may not have heard him when you've listened to some Allman Brothers in the past. But this is his project called Gov't Mule. So I'm going to have you check out a song by them today. I know we've discussed them in the past. But we're going to have you check out a song called Beautifully Broken by them. So I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about Gov't Mule, Mr. Warren Haynes. So please go off, give this thing a spin, and come back and let us all know what you've made of it.
Knew he was going to come in. I was trying to stop before he came in. I like that start because you got this guitar part that's kind of almost kicking its heels around as it sort of forms into a phrase or a riff. And then they've got the entrance of I think it's an organ. It's that one sustained note that rises in volume. And that's really nice. I always enjoy that. But I think there's two keyboards involved because you've got this lovely sustained organy, quite Hammondy kind of sound. But then there's also like this bouncy electric piano sound as well, which is gorgeous. So you've got this sort of sustained notes, and then you've got this sort of impish sort of thing picking its way through the song as well. And the two of them work really nicely together. That's fantastic. And then your manager started singing, yeah, and the drums come in. It's quite a sort of almost lazy sort of, tempo to it. It's very sort of, laid back. Start again. The rhythm section, good, I'll let it run for a bit. Sorry. The rhythm section sort of bouncing along. Again, it's a very simple sort of drum beat, and the bass is sort of like bobbing. There's this image of like a fishing float just bobbing up and down and going up and down in the river. Yeah, nice stuff.
Mysterious, blown in with the night. All this beauty captured in a frame, visibly shaken, but never
Yeah, it's really interesting. A couple of things here. I didn't mean to stop then. I was just kind of twitched, but we have stopped. So yeah, the lyrically, this mysterious woman blown in the night. Um, the way he's talking about her is because he's got to know her name and stuff. It's quite a voyeuristics. You know, he's observing the scene rather than I don't know what scene it is. Um, what location. But yeah, it's almost this classic sort of femme fatale that he's putting together. And I wonder if he's framing it um, in his mind rather than actually what is actually, because, you know, unreliable narrator is one of my favorite devices. Um, but yeah, he said something about she's so beautifully broken. And I wonder if that really refers to the narrator rather than the subject. Um, That's yeah, interesting. All this time that's going on, you're getting these accents by the organ, these sustained notes, and then in the right channel is the electric piano. I'm sure of it bouncing around. Um, yeah, it's really, really effective. Those two working together um, is almost overshadowing anything. Guy's got a nice voice. It's one of those ones that's a lot. It's definitely American. You can just there's something about it, and it's hard to quantify what it is, but it is got that sort of semi-rasp to it that was sort of honed from blues rock in the 70s. But it's nice, you know, and he has got enough sort of touch and feel to it to not be a sort of one-trick pony all the way through. It sounds good. I'll just go back a little bit because I stopped him in mid-flow.
Dangerously twisted. Here I go again.
Yeah, I go again. About right.
I see the way she cast her spell. It's like drowning in moonlight. Discards them what she's done. Lost in her twilight. Watch her move from star to star, and I wonder why
No fade out. Yeah, I really got into that at one point. I just think that the organ and the piano, the electric piano together were just absolutely superb. And the way they interweaved with a lot of what the vocal melody was doing, and sometimes the guitar as well. But almost to the point where I was just listening to that. But it's not one of those where you would say it would be even better as an instrumental, because I think it really worked really well with the lines he was singing and just threw in these shades and accents. And yeah, so structurally it worked so well. Um, so much so that I basically barely registered the drums or the bass. The guitar solo was really nice, and it was one of those well judged ones where it wasn't this sort of blistering face melter. It was more conversational ear chewer. I think that was spot on. There was some really, I don't know, perhaps it's just me. Probably is, but I just thought it was odd, these lyrics. It's almost like someone's framing someone to be the maid in distress that he can then rescue, whether she is or she isn't. Yeah, that's what I sort of got from that. It's talking about, lying to himself and saying that he could break her while she's some sort of like untamed horse or something. Jesus, well, taming the shrew or something. But she's already beautifully broken. Um, it's interesting, that phrase beautifully broken. I don't know what exactly it means, the broken part, but the beautifully is like pleasing to him, that he can see this aspect in her, or this flaw in her character. Um, Here I go again, he said as well, and why do I always fall for the dangerous ones? Um, Perhaps he doesn't. Perhaps he makes them dangerous in his mind. Um, I don't know. It's a little bit sketchy. Perhaps I'm reading too much into this. Um, I also got the thought listening to this that the tone, it wasn't exactly the same, but the tone of it and the way it sort of laid out. I was listening to some Paul Weller earlier this week, and it kind of reminded me of his first few albums. I was thinking like, um, Didn't Mean to Hurt You or something like that. There's a very similar tone to it in the way it comes across, not necessarily the instrumentation. And then You Do Something to Me as well, really. And then I was thinking those songs, and particularly early, Weller's really channeling his inner Steve Marriott. And I think that's where it comes to vocally. This is like a lot of that, trying to get to that sort of that wonderful voice that has that sort of slight, and yeah, whatever he wants in his voice, but kind of that raspiness, that croakiness, the inflections and everything, and the stresses, and then the gentle touch as well. And this guy did a really good job. And then also, because of the organ as well, I started thinking about Stevie Winwood as well. Perhaps I'm just reaching here, but these are sort of, there's probably a dozen names you could throw out there with a similar style. But yeah, really pleasing. I absolutely adored the organ, the electric piano. So yeah, we need to find out some more about Gov't Mule. So let's go back and chop it up with Andy.
All right, so you have returned. What did you make of Beautifully Broken, John?
Yeah, interesting stuff. So it starts with a guitar riff, firmly rooted in the blues, and it kind of is kicking its heels until it sort of works out a riff, which then it starts to, or a phrase that starts to repeat. And then it's joined by the organ. And it's in that classic sort of entrance, so that sort of one sustained note that rises in volume and comes in, and then the rhythm section kicks in. The band lays out a very gentle, almost slumberous groove, with a tempo kind of matching most people's resting pulse. And the bass bobs along like a nodding fishing float on a lazy, gentle river. The organ notes float like motes of dust in a shaft of golden sunlight. Actually, it took me a little while to realize this, but we have two keyboards, I believe, going. There's the sort of like organy, Hammondy like organ, and then an electric piano, I think Rhodes or something. It has that lovely, warm, bouncy sound to it. More on that later. Your man starts to croon with a voice that definitely comes from that line of raspy American blues rock voices that were really defined in the 70s. I think I said this in the reaction. I don't know why, but there's an unquantifiable element to it where you just know that he has an American voice. And there's plenty of British singers that from that period of time that were blues rock, and plenty of them that had a slightly raspy voice as well. But there's something about it that, bang, this guy's American. I know, and I can't put my finger on what. So he begins his tale of this mysterious femme fatale who is blown in with the night. I do hope she was wearing suitable attire, or she might get some serious chafing. So it is an interesting setup as he describes observing this woman playing her men. There's a touch of the sort of almost at this point, it's quite, I don't sound harsh, but voyeuristic. He's definitely observing from a distance because he wants to find out her name, etc. It just make me wonder what sort of location or scenario this is, or just a generalized thing. And I begin to wonder, and I continue throughout the song, whether this is one of those songs that says more about the narrator than it does about the subject. So he says some stuff about she's so beautifully broken, shaped by the wind, dangerously twisted, here I go again. So the description is that of this sort of classic troubled woman. You might think the titular character, but for me, the most significant line here is "Here I go again." Not the Whitesnake version, obviously.
Oh God. Flashbacks that I wasn't expecting.
Some people, I couldn't resist. Some people claim to go for bad boys or troubled souls or whatever. But if there's a pattern of repeating scenarios, there's usually one common factor, and that's the person telling you about it. So perhaps he seeks out this kind of woman, knowingly or not. Or perhaps he perceives them as these sort of fabled character or framed for him to rescue, and he enjoys that sort of scenario. I don't know. Just spitballing here, as they say. The music is really gentle and quite ponderous. You get these occasional lovely sort of flourishes of punctuations from the drums. And there's a couple of bits later on where they do some nice sort of like mini fill. He doesn't go, Keith Moon or anything, but it's really sort of tight and reserved and well judged. And the same with the guitar. There's the odd little flourish here, but interestingly, I think for a song like this based on blues and with that, the guitar is at the start of the show by a long way for me. But it's like a lot of blues numbers as they're going through, particularly the verses. They're really framing the narrative, biding their time for an instrumental break when usually hell breaks loose, whether it be, guitar, harmonica, whatever. So next verse, he sings about how she casts a spell, this woman's sort of siren skills and witchcraft powered by the moon. And of course, she tosses her men aside once they've served their purpose. There's a couple of lines, will you call it pre-chorus or something? It's definitely slightly different, but it isn't. Where he puts accent on certain words. I think he says, I watch her move from star to star, and I wonder why it feels so right. I don't know what he means by star to star. Is he talking about these victims? I don't know, but anyway. But stylistically, this feels very familiar, the way he puts the accent on these words. And this is a strange one, but bear with me. Earlier this week, I was listening to the first three Paul Weller solo albums. And there is a comparison to be made in the feel of this, not the exact sound of it, but the way it comes across. One's definitely rooted in blues. The other one is sort of like a soul, almost acid jazzy at the start, and then it goes into blues rock later in later album. But I thought at first song that sprung to mind was a song called "I Didn't Mean to Hurt You," which is kind of similar in the way it comes across. But I think there's a song called "You Do Something to Me," which really has this thing, really the same sort of tone as this. Really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, then I was thinking about the voicing, um, and how Weller then at the start of his solo career, obviously he's had a career with, Jam and Style Council, but he was really at that point hugely channeling his inner Steve Marriott, who we, covered for Small Faces, and things like this sort of laid back organ work underpinning stuff would features in the first two or three albums of his as well. So there's a lot of similarities going on. Just thought it was just interesting and didn't expect to come across. And back to the song, we get description of this woman again as this beautifully broken. And it made me wonder, what does this really mean? And I'm probably reading too much into all this. But for a start, what is broken? And is broken in the eye of the beholder. But also, is that the element that he finds so an interesting phrase, beautifully broken, is the fact that he perceives this woman to be broken, beautiful, and that's what makes it beautiful for him, is this flaw. We get another glimpse as he says that you can't see the flaw from a distance, which is another way of kind of saying about beauty being skin deep. It's an interesting, but it's character rather than beauty here. They can't see. Again, from the start, he's kind of voyeuristic and from a distance looking. So how the hell can he know that she's broken or in character from a distance? And he says, that is how I get caught out. It's really interesting. There's perhaps some distant idolizing or framing. Like I said before, maybe he's not putting her on a pedestal, but perhaps he's tying her to a railway track line just so that he can rescue her. And then he confirms, he says, why do I fall for the dangerous ones? Which made me laugh. And there was another line, and then he says, why do I lie to myself? And then there's something to the effect that he tells himself he can break her like she was some sort of untrained horse.
You're right. Yeah.
When she's already beautifully broken. You can read too much into this, whether you find that troubling or not. But I just think I think it reflects back on the narrator more than it does on whatever this poor woman's done. But I really, really like the organ and the electric piano here. We get this combination of these searing, sustained notes that almost feel like they're carrying everything really weighty, and then these tight, bouncy notes on the right channel from the Rhodes or whatever it is that sort of scamper through the phrases, and almost like another commentary where you can't decipher what they're saying, but it's almost like this chitter chatter. And the way they interlink with the vocal melody is just wonderful. Really lovely stuff. And then we come to what some people would call a musical interlude.
Discerning people, yes.
Yeah. So the guitar, it talks for a while, actually. And the quality of the notes, it does sound conversational. A bit sometimes that B.B. King would do, where it's almost like it's, So rather than this traditional, you would get this blistering blues solo, you expect instead of face melting, we get ear chewing. And I think it's really nicely judged for that as well. It really fits well. And it has a lovely tone to it, as you'd expect. So we return to the narrative with a repeat of that. I think it's that stanza where he talks about why does he fall for these liaisons dangereux, with echoes of the guitar solo, or for want of a better word, keeps rumbling through the lines, just the bits appearing. And then it continues into that chorus with the beautifully broken, here I go again, repeated. And the guitar still rumbling, and then it comes back to chunter on, as it were. And it is great, and the bass is bouncing away, and the drums are perfectly judged. But I am such a fan of that organ work and that electric piano. It gives so much attitude and soul to the song, for want of a better word. And again, that sort of structure, expansive, then the nimble, bouncy, and the interplay is really a delight. I actually start to zone out a little bit as the band jammed the last section of it, and almost completely concentrated on something that I couldn't hear anything else. And I'd have thought, sometimes you think the music's so good, would it be better as an instrumental? But I think it's the key way that they interplay with the vocal melody that makes it so good. Without the vocal melody, it's still really decent, but it's just that bit that takes it that extra level. Then we get very long, gentle, slow fade out into the dark nights. So yeah, I really enjoyed the tone to this. But for me, it's all done very well. But the stars were the sort of the triangle, as it were, of vocal melody and organ and electric piano was just beautiful. And it also made me think. I thought about Weller and I thought about Steve Marriott, but with that organ sound and the way he phrased some of the words, it also had a little touch of Stevie Winwood to me as well,
Mm.
which I thought was really interesting. I mean, without sounding like any of these people, like a copy of, just
Yeah.
elements of, really. So yeah, I thought it was really fascinating. I probably misjudged the lyrics completely, but again, it stopped and made me think. So that's got to be good.
Yeah, no, and I don't think you're off the mark too much in your interpretation. I do appreciate how whenever you hear a song like this, you always bring up the other perspective that we're not hearing. In this case, the young woman who's being talked about but has no voice in the track, which is a fair point to make. I mean, is this a song that's underscoring the flaws in what he's witnessing, or is there a layer deeper to that where it's he's in a way underscoring or highlighting his own flaws? So that's always an interesting way to approach or look at the lyrics of a song and provide you another angle on it. For sure, there are. If you just listen to this, you could be left wondering. I wonder if this woman ever spent any time in the mid to late '70s around the Commodore Hotel, because she's there's this same sort of troubled pattern, a little less comical, obviously, in this light than it is when you're looking at it from the little
Yeah,
feet
yeah,
perspective. But nonetheless, yeah, I'm really glad you liked it. I'm so glad you found the beauty in it. There is. Obviously, everything you mentioned about the what stood out to you in the song is, I would agree with completely. So yeah, some really great stuff. I really love his voice, kind of that grit and edge to it that suggests he's seen things and lived experiences, which is so integral to blues music. You know what I mean? You can't sound green if you're gonna sing the blues. And this guy sounds like he's got all the tenure and heartbreak and hard times that one would need to perform the blues authentically. So yeah, for sure. Gov't Mule. They are an American Southern rock jam band formed in 1994 by guitarist Warren Haynes, bassist Alan Woody, both of the Allman Brothers at the time, and drummer Matt Apts, whom Haynes had worked with in the Dickie Betts band. They had released 10 studio albums plus numerous EPs and live releases. When the Allman Brothers Band reformed in 1989, partially in response to the popularity of their Dreams box set, Warren Haynes was added as a permanent lead guitarist and vocalist, and Alan Woody was recruited as bass guitarist. The two shared a love for 1960s power trios, and yes, we love some power trios over here at the Audiophiles as well, including Cream, Jimi Hendrix Experience, and the James Gang and the Mountains. Haynes, Woody, and drummer Matt Apps, who played with Haynes in the Dickey Band, came together as Gov't Mule during the Allman Brothers breaks. They released their debut album, Gov't Mule, produced by Michael Barbiero in 1995. And Live at Roslyn Ballroom was released in 1996, and it consisted of their 1995 New Year's Eve set opening for Blues Traveler, another band that we've covered here on this channel through viewer suggestion. When the Allman Brothers Band were not forthcoming with any new material, Haynes and Woody left to concentrate full time on Gov't Mule in 1997. Their second studio effort, Dose, also produced by Barbiero, was released in early 1998. They were joined by members of the Allman Brothers, the Black Crows, Parliament Stroke Funkadelic, and the Derek Trucks Band for their 1998 New Year's Eve concert, released both in a 2 and 4 CD version as Live with a Little Help from Our Friends. Man, that would have been a really great show to catch. The performance exposed some of the band's influences, covering Neil Young, Free, Traffic, Jimi Hendrix, the aforementioned Little Feat, Humble Pie, and Black Sabbath. In February 2000, the band released Life Before Insanity to critical praise, and although the band had already experienced previous successes, they anticipated a greater commercial success with this album. Unfortunately, Alan Woody was found dead in New York City on August 26th of that very same year at the Marriott Courtyard in Queens, New York. A preliminary autopsy performed was inconclusive and showed no immediate cause of death, but it was subsequently determined that he had died of a heroin overdose on which I don't know how that flies under the radar of an initial autopsy. It just is weird to me. But nonetheless, a tragedy for sure. On September 21st of 2000, a benefit concert was organized called One for Woody, with the proceeds going to Woody's daughter, Savannah Woody, intended for her education. The Allman Brothers, the Black Crowes, Phil Lesh and Friends, Jimmy Herring, Edwin McCain, and several more of Woody's friends also performed at the concert. Haynes and Apps continued to do limited touring in the fall of 2000, supporting Ben Harper and the Innocent Criminals, who've also been featured on this channel, as an homage to Woody. Their subsequent Smile at Half Mast tour that followed was named after a reference that Haynes had made in a poem that he wrote for Woody's funeral. At the One for Woody performance and subsequently at other shows, Haynes began appearing with the Allman Brothers Band again. With Dickie Betts' departure from the Allmans, Haynes came back full-time to the band at the beginning of 2001 and would continue splitting his time between the Allman Brothers, Gov't Mule, and for a period, Phil Lesh and Friends, and other reformed Grateful Dead bands until the Allman Brothers disbanded for the final time in 2014. The next year, Barbiero, Haynes, and Apps began to record a tribute album using some of Woody's favorite bass players. So many musicians wanted to participate that the band ended up recording 2 albums worth of material. Woody himself is posthumously featured on a cover of Grand Funk Railroad's Sin's a Good Man's Brother. These sessions resulted in 2 CDs, The Deep End Volume 1 in 2001 and The Deep End Volume 2 in 2002. A documentary of the recording sessions was also made by Fish bassist Mike Gordon called Rising Low. Bass contributions to the Deep End albums came from Jack Bruce, formerly of Cream, John Entwistle of The Who, Matt Watt of Minutemen, Les Claypool of Primus, Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Chris Squire of Yes, and Stefan Lazard of the Dave Matthews Band, Dave Schools of Widespread Panic, Oteil Burbridge, who had filled Woody's former place in the Allman Brothers, Victor Wooten of the Flecktones, Bootsy Collins, George Porter Jr. of the Meters, former Metallica bassist Jason Newsted, ex-Black Crowes member and Buddy Guy sideman Greg Rizab, and Andy Hess, also formerly of the Black Crowes. So talk about a who's who among bass players. A revolving door of keyboardists and bassists were used to fulfill touring engagements in support of the Deep End recordings, including Chuck Leavell, Rob Baracal, Paige McConnell, and Danny Lewis. Danny Lewis and Andy Hess were eventually named as permanent members of Gov't Mule, making them now a 4-piece from the early 2000s on. This track that I had you listen to today features as the 11th track on the aforementioned 2001 album, The Deep End, Volume 1, the band's 4th studio album. It was released on October 23rd by ATO Records and Evangeline Records, and over at AllMusic, the album sits at an aggregate rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars based on 287 reviews. Over at Blues Rock Review, the staff member Marcel Innocentini, penned an article and accompanying list entitled Top 10 Gov't Mule Songs, and he listed Beautifully Broken as the 4th best track by the band, adding this small blurb. In 2001, Gov't Mule released The Deep End Volume 1, which contains, besides traditional blues rock songs, their most beautiful ballads. Beautifully Broken is one of them. And on stage, Mule used to play this song in a medley that somehow seamlessly transitioned to Prince's When Doves Cry, which is interesting to think about, knowing, having listened to this and knowing that song, I'm sure, and thinking about how that would sort of flow on stage. But if anyone can pull it off, it's a jam band, that's for sure. Let's jump into these lyrics. Mysterious, blown in with the night, all this beauty captured in a frame, visibly shaken but never stirred, drives them insane. I see the way she plays her man, and now I know I've got to know her name. She's so beautifully broken, shaped by the wind, dangerously twisted. Here I go again. I see the way she casts her spell. It's like drowning in moonlight. Discards them when she's done. They're lost in her twilight. I watch her move from star to star, and I wonder why it feels so right. She's so beautifully broken. Barely see the flaw, especially from a distance, which is always how I fall. Why do I fall for the dangerous ones, the ones that never learn to let go? Why do I lie to myself and pretend that I can break her when she's already been so beautifully broken? Why do I fall for the dangerous ones, the ones that don't know how to let go? Why do I lie to myself, pretend that I could break her when she's already been so beautifully broken, shaped by the wind, dangerously twisted? Here I go again. Here I go again. So yeah, the song depicts the observation by our narrator of a beautiful and strong, albeit flawed woman who has been jaded and hardened by her own experiences with men and love throughout her life. And he is sort of attracted to her despite his recognizing that she is beautifully broken and a danger to his mental and emotional state. He even questions why he falls for this type, but still acknowledges that he can't help but pursue her as he ends the song repeating, Here I go again. And go ahead, John, please.
Yeah, it struck me when you were reading out the full lyrics like that, that I think, I'm not reading too much into this, but it's almost like there's a touch of that sort of laconic commentary that's almost Chandler-esque. Like he thinks he's Philip Marlowe in the way he's talking, um, and he may not be. Is what I'm saying. It's just really interesting, and to do that is well written. You know,
Yeah.
it's almost a sort of 1950s sort of commentary of a woman rather than 21st century.
Yeah, yeah, it does make you stop and think. Like right out of the gate, he says he notes that what drew his attention to her was how she treated her then man that he witnessed. And it's like maybe the your growth moment will be when you stop looking to her and you start looking at that guy and acknowledging that you have some commonality and you don't want to be in his position. And still he sees this happening right before he watches the car crash. And he's like, yeah, I like the one that caused it. It's just like, come on. The one who continually puts themselves in those situations is at fault as well. So stop being like them. So yeah, and maybe it lacks a little bit of self-awareness, and maybe that's kind of you could suggest that there's some charm in that as well, so long as they eventually learn from the errors of their way. But yeah, nonetheless, it is a really pretty blues, as they put it, ballad that features on this album. And if you did enjoy this, I'd certainly like to bring some more Gov't Mule because, as I stated right at the gate, they've got quite a large oeuvre of material to pull from. So, and I mean, those names, man, you it's pretty obvious that other musicians respect them. If you're part of this many projects, and if one of you goes and passes away, that many people are sort of lining up to help you. I mean, to the point where you have to put out two albums, and you've got people all the way from like Entwistle to Flea to, Bootsy Collins, it's just, and Victor Wooten. It's a veritable who's who of some amazing bass players from, in some cases, very different genres that are all
Yeah.
lined up to kind of get behind this. So that's heartening to hear and see as well. So thank you so much for giving this a listen, John. I'm really glad you appreciated it.
No, my pleasure.
Excellent, excellent. Well, guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you think of Mr. Warren Haynes, and obviously, the other guys in this band, whether it's Woody or Apt. They're some pretty solid musicians that have done a lot of great work with a lot of different projects. So if any of those projects you'd like to see featured on the channel, including more from Gov't Mule, please feel free to drop them down in the comments field. So long as one of us hasn't heard the song, we will add it to our list for viewer suggestion Fridays. Also, please like, share, and or subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. We really do appreciate it. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next episode of The Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.